Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this conversation today. Um, it's on a topic which is interesting, and I know every moderator would call it, but this really is something which will challenge the PR and communications industry. It is how are we ensuring the talent edge through innovation, and why are younger firms more attractive? We have a panel which is very diverse, which we hope will challenge the status quo and really build on this topic. Please to invite. What I would do is take their names and then request each of them to introduce themselves. We have Bushra from Confiance Communications, Sandeep from OneSource, Hemant from Veritas Reputation, and Akansha from the Other Circle. Over to my to the panelists to introduce themselves.
Okay, hello everybody. It's so lovely being here with you all today. As Carson just introduced me, my name is Bushra and I run a communications firm. It's called Confiance. Just to give you guys a little bit about us, we are about 3 years old. We're based in Gurgaon, and I'm very happy to say that our specialty is working with startups. And the reason I say I'm very happy that our specialty is working with startups is because there has never been a better time in India, to be a startups-oriented agency than is now, perhaps. So yeah, these are really exciting times. The COVID has taught us, this whole phase of the pandemic has taught us different ways of operating, and this whole synergies that startups and agencies have managed to build together throughout this last one and a half years. It's been a great period, I think, purely communications wise and professionally speaking. So yeah.
Thanks, Bushra.
Hey, hi everyone. This is Sandeep here, Sandeep Rao. I'm the CEO of the OneSource Group. There's two group companies, a forum that I'm pretty sure at least 95% of you are a part of, including several of our panelists. And the integrated marketing firm that works across corporate communication, content marketing, digital marketing, branding and films, a lot of interesting spaces. So one of the reasons why we get called a PR firm and invariably turn around and say, stop a second there. That's us. Over to you, Akansha.
Thanks, Sandeep. Hi, guys. This is Akanksha. Designation-wise, I am the CEO, but I prefer being the primary janitor because in a firm the size of ours, I do think that we end up doing a little bit of everything. We're a pan-India agency. Very, very proud to be the size that we are at this point of time. Please do look us up, I think, across social channels to know the kind of work that we do. I'm actually very pleased with what Bushra said earlier. I do think that it's probably the best time to be in PR at this inflection point, at least in the industry. I've been doing what I've been doing for 10 years now, which I think is much lesser than a lot of others on this panel. So I probably am youngest in that sense. But I do think that there's a big difference in PR in being beat agnostic to being tools agnostic to being industry agnostic and specialism that we get on to the conversation today. So, Carson, I'm very excited to see where this goes. Over to Hemant.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Hemant Batra. I represent a company called Veritas Reputation PR. We are specialists in BFSI FinTech. It's a 3.5-year-old company. We started in January 2018. So more or less handling quite a bit big names in our sector. So that is our background.
Thanks for the introduction. My name is Carson Dalton, and I'm a Director for Public Affairs, Communications and Sustainability at the Coca-Cola Company. I look after the markets of India and South Asia. I think we'll dive straight in. Really, and this topic is an opportunity for the PR industry, which are the younger firms, to create to talk about the super specialty models, and that's the edge that they have through specialist skills for clients. But to enable this super specialty models, it is a people-driven business, and it is upon any firm, young or old, to create a pipeline of skilled professionals who are enabled to ensure that this model works. And I'd like to kick off with the first question and really it's keen to know, and I think all our listeners are keen to understand, is what is the edge that younger firms offer clients? Now, when we talk about the edge here, let's begin first with the skill. What are the services that younger firms are offering, which perhaps bigger firms don't? And second, if we can also move, is how are you retaining? So let's kick off with that.
Okay.
Perhaps,
May I, Carson?
Yes, please.
Okay, so one of the key factors that I find that younger firms have as an advantage over mid to large size firms is agility. Agility not in terms of just servicing client needs, it's also in terms of servicing the needs of the people. So the way I put this is a firm has people, they've got partners, and they've got principals, right? So people is I don't like using the E word, which is employees, but that's our people. Partners is clientele, and principals is what we stand for. Now, the ability to be agile enough to suit all of those needs is something that I've found helps younger firms retain talent, bring in more talent, as a matter of fact.
So if I understand correctly, Sandeep, you're saying the USP of younger firms today is to be faster and more nimble in serving the needs of their clients.
So if I may give an example here, Carson, to explain the point. If a client were to turn around and say that they need something put up on their Wikipedia, I'm actually giving away an interview question here. That's something I ask regularly of people that I interview. I ask them, would your client come to you and say, do they want ET or FE as a citation? And 99% of the industry says ET, right? Better reach, bigger publication, yada, yada. The fun part is that Wikipedia says the Express Group is more reliable as a citation. I'm not trying to get sued here. I'm just stating facts right off Wikipedia, right? So the point is the agility to absorb that kind of knowledge for the people, because the people expect to be trained. A Carson, as a brand side professional, doesn't want to deal with a PR person, then a digital agency, then an ad agency. He wants one person answering all of those questions. The brand not only needs to be, the agency or the firm or the consultancy needs to be not only agile enough to service the client, they need to be agile enough in absorbing information so that they can service their people.
So, Sandeep, that's one point that we're going to take on agility and having that kind of knowledge to be that single window to clients. It's a convincing point, but I just want to bring in Akansha. How can we build on that? If we have to create a position paper on younger firms being more competitive. So if Sandeep's one point is agility and single window of clearance, how else can we build on this?
I think it's worthwhile to ask ourselves, what is a young agency anymore, right? I think look at how COVID has changed it's changed the entire dynamic of PR firms and how we deal with things. So are we calling a young agency someone who's been around for 2 years, 10 years, decade, lesser than the big 4, big 5, big 6? Or are we talking about people who are younger in their mindset? Are we talking about people who adapt to digital PR easily? So I feel like calling an agency young at this point of time is a little loose, because everybody is a young agency in the last 2 years when it comes to COVID. So now I'm going to choose what I'm defining a young agency as in my parlance. I think it's someone who's been under a decade. I think it's someone who has a fairly different set of clientele, I guess, is sort of gearing towards a little bit of a particular kind of expertise, has typically thus far stuck to some sort of industry and sort of gained expertise there, or maybe has a fairly young, set of clientele who has a fairly young workforce. So keeping those parameters in mind, I think one of the top things that we add as a younger firm, as a more agile firm, like Sandeep mentioned, is value. And I would like to stick to content in this part of our conversation, where I feel that we're able to bring perspective that I think a lot of PR professionals in the older years haven't. So they have set ways of working, which I think have worked over the last 20, 30, 40 years. I mean, PR in our country is really young. PR in our country is 50 years old, in its traditional, in its formative professional format. So I feel that the way we're able to add perspective, especially to the new target audience, which is your young millennials or your urbans or your Gen Zs, I think that's a big one. I mean, look at Coca-Cola's, communication processes at this point of time. You guys have been pioneers in positioning, and look at the way that's shifted, right? So you need an agency that's able to partner with you in those sub-contexts, in those subcultures. And I think the young agency, purely because of the freshness of perspective it's able to bring, the fact that they're definitely age-wise younger, so they're more adaptable to social media and the way it works, or whatever else there may be, I think adds a significant amount of value from a culture perspective as well.
Interesting point there on value and perspective. I quickly want to bring in Hemant. Hemant, how different is your perspective from what we just heard from Sandeep and Akansha? We've heard of agility, value. Over to you, please.
Yeah, so the edge that younger firms and bring, and the firms are younger, but just like in our case, the founder, I have 25 years of experience in public relations. So different firms have different offerings. I mean, for us, being a specialist in our field, the specialist and building the entire team around it. So when we are specializing in corporate, or when we are specializing in BFSI, fintech, that space, the entire team is structured around it. The entire offerings are structured around it. Then we specialize in each and every segment and sub-segment of the BFSI field. So by doing that, when we go to a client, I mean, we offer them understanding of our sector. When we go to the media, we offer them understanding of the sector, ease of communication, ease of doing, packaging the entire idea, packaging the communication objectives with the client to the media. So that kind of understanding we bring to the table. Another thing that we bring to the client is senior consultants' time is available versus, I mean, if they go to any other larger agency, they will be delegated to a lowest common denominator, or some junior person handling their account. In our company, there are a lot of seniors who will be actually sitting with the client, and so a lot of senior time is available. So that way we bring better ROI. That's our edge that we bring to the clients.
Got it. I'm just going to play devil's advocate here before I bring in Bushra. So listen, we've got agility, we've got value, we've got specialists, we've got return on investment in bringing senior people to the table and giving them more time, but it's not convincing enough. It's not convincing enough because I don't think we're really bringing out why are young firms shining. And Bushra, I'd like to bring you in here, but are there certain skill sets which big firms are unable to bring in? And I think that's how I would like to tilt the conversation more on values of services than sort of a whole menu of services which client would ask. So over to you, before.
Thank you, Carson. So, before I take your question, I'd like to take a step back and tell you a practical reason as to why younger agencies are shining, as we put it. The fact is that younger agencies are offering clients a much shorter cycle. And today, one thing that we lack, all of us, is patience. So a realistic answer here would be that where traditional agencies take their own time for things to happen, and I'm saying this with a lot of experience of having been at both sides, at both ends of the table, is that younger agencies are willing to work with you and match your speed. And when I say speed, I don't mean in the conventional sense of agility, but the fact of the matter is that today a client, especially for a firm like mine, which is a startup, does not have the patience to wait it out for, 3 quarters before we can start delivering on promise. So, the work starts at ground zero. And I feel that this is one of the definitive factors that I can say in my experience, which is working in the favor of younger agencies, because we really match speed. And apart from that, of course, the fact of the matter is that we are willing to, question the rules, turn them around, bend them over, use them ethically, of course, but then use them to match or to give what you're looking for with the agency. Because see, every partnership, every professional partnership at least is very results driven. So unless you really see value in it, there's no point why we stick together. And this is really a practical answer as per my experience. So I don't know if that answers your question, Carson.
That does. And I want to, thanks for that, Bushra. I want to move this, I want to bring in Akansha very quickly. What are those set of services that newer firms are honing in terms of skills and offering clients. I'd like to understand some of the areas which aren't old, but very few agencies today would talk about. Maybe they are. So, maybe let's throw light on that. Policy and regulatory communications, sustainability and ESG, market access, right? So just like this, and I'm trying to move away from the startup conversation. We'll get there, just as Bushra said. I'm very interested to get there too. I know there are agencies that specialize only working with startups. It's like there are certain agencies who only specialize on helping companies go in for an IPO. But really around some of the newer reams of communications that are coming out today, is that areas that newer agencies are looking into and investing into?
So in my experience, actually, Kasim, it's the opposite. I think we need to look at it as project managers rather than PR companies anymore. What I mean by that is I think one skill set that I think small agencies, younger agencies excel in is crisis communication. I think the number of clients that we've worked with in the last 5 years for different kind of crises is massive, right? Because we are able to, and taking a little bit from what Bushra said, we're able to mobilize a team fairly quickly, and we're able to be on the ground fairly faster. So I think crisis management and crisis communication is definitely the number one skill where I think we, sort of stand out. That being said, I think that besides the very obvious internal comms that now PR agencies are looking at doing themselves, right? Or whether we're looking at go-to-market strategies, whether we're looking at launches, whether we're looking at content marketing in a very, very big way. In fact, I mean, and I know that Sandeep will add to this probably after me, but I do know that those are skills that we're looking at as well. And we're looking at non-traditional media buying. That's very important to understand. Building communities is also another aspect that we're working on very deeply. So to give you, my agency also works with a lot of media companies. So we manage a whole bunch of media companies themselves, right? So we sit on the table and we understand where they're going and where their strategy is. So being able to do consumer research in a very different sense is a new skill that we've picked up. And consumer research is not just the old saw logo ko bheja, right? Like that's a questionnaire and that's what you do. That's very old school, very pathway. So newer skills in that sense, I think, is something that younger agencies are doing very well. And my last submission would be that more often than not, we enter a project as partners. So as marketing or as positioning partners. So you walk in and say, hey, okay, let's say you're launching a new wearable tech product. So what all do you need? So do you need, let's say, a celebrity face? Do you need to media buy? Do you need to look at these kind of digital marketing activations? Do you need to look at PR in this way? Do you need to define positioning in that way? You enter in as that kind of a consultant, a little bit like Olivia Pope from Scandal, if you may. But that's where I think PR agencies are going, and with living examples of it. And my other last submission is, this myth, and I know we'll probably come to it, that younger agencies make lesser cash. Is just that. It's a myth. So I really think that at some point we will compare apples to oranges during this conversation. But I think that this entire project management piece is what's made us excel and match numbers, especially in the pandemic, than anything else.
Akansha is going to come to the dollars because that's where everything is. But some excellent points on crisis communications. You talked about content marketing, building. So you're really creating an integrated communications where you're this one-stop shop, and it is bordering. And I actually it was music to my ears where you talked about also building communities. I think.
Kasim, I want to interject.
Yes.
I absolutely detest integrated marketing communication companies with fervor. I detest them because there is no point of being a one-stop shop. I think that's the most ridiculous thing I have seen companies become, because we lose our edge at all points of time. It's about collaboration. So for example, let's say that I'm working with, let's say, a fintech startup, and I know Hemant has the expertise. It's the smartest thing to do to get Hemant onto that project, right? Let's say I'm working on taking the same fintech product to scan 1992 and advertise there. I'm going to pull Sandeep in. And lastly, if it's a region where I cannot have presence, then I'll pull Bushra in saying, hey, Bushra, can you do this for me in Delhi and Bangalore? So I think it's about collaboration and not being a one-stop shop. I think
it's really hold you to that, Akansha. I want to bring in perhaps Hemant, and then we'll move to either Bushra or Sandeep. This model, which you've just talked about, the agencies are handing out or bringing in the experts. In the words of what Sandeep said a little earlier, is that podium talk or is that practicality? So I think that's the next question we want to get into. And Hemant, would you like to take that? When was the last time an agency called you in and said, here, we're giving you business, which you always thought was a competitor?
No, so that has happened, and in fact, a few of the larger agencies, few of the founders of large agencies in the country have referred business to us. I mean, the top few also. So it is because people understand that every segment they cannot. I mean, because to cater to a segment, you need to have the entire ecosystem around it. So I mean, if you see our field, BFSI, fintech. There would be 3, maximum 4 agencies which can do justice to the client. All others, I mean, they need to put the backend in place. They need to. So, for example, the influencer community in BFSI is different. The media is different. The people who handle such clients are different. So it's an entire ecosystem we have to create for a particular segment. Now, is a younger firm which tries to get into everything, it's doomed, because it's impossible for them to do it because the resources are limited. If the resources are limited, you do good for one particular segment. That way, you will be able to compete with larger organizations, and that way you can bring in your edge, which will probably beat them at their game. So that's how we need to scale up. What Akanksha said is absolutely right. And larger organizations that give, we have given a lot of our clients which are in other segments, lifestyle or consumer, to other agencies. So that it's always collaborative.
Yeah, Hemant, thanks. I just want to push that on to Busha. Busha, smaller firms or younger firms, right? We'll figure out what we want to call it at the end of through this. Are they staying small or young because they love what they do? And by that question, what I meant is, in the UK, for instance, you will have firms that only do, let's just say, community building, or they will only help you on sustainability communications or ESG. Some will only help you on market access issues into, say, Africa, right? So is that a niche that smaller and younger firms want to be? Is that this thing? And obviously, your billing, if it's a big project and your billing does go up, so we can come to billing. But I just want to understand the thinking.
Well, actually, I'm glad you asked me that, and thank you for asking me that, because I do believe that a lot of young firms are young by design, and they'd like to stay small by design. For instance, Confiance, because again, I can speak out of personal experience. Carson, we've been in the business for over 3 years now, and we are boutique by design for the simple reason that I feel specialization is key, and I genuinely believe that. For a long, long time, we did not have a business development wing at all. And we got all the business through referrals because somebody out there knew this is what they are best at. And maybe you should reach out to them if you need this done. So I feel that, yes, a lot of us want to stay young or new or whatever else you may want to say by design, because we know that, okay, these are the 3 things that we're really, really excellent at. And I'd rather build on that further and stand out from that clutter before I move on to doing other things and call myself integrated or one-stop shop or all of those fancy things. Because no, I'm not integrated and I'm not a one-stop shop. I am here to do something which I am very, very sure of, and I am going to continue to scale on that till I feel that, okay, now I am also confident of taking on D and C and whatever else.
I just want to stop you there. I'm glad you said you want to be a specialist. So what are those 2 skills or those 2 areas that your agency offers? And before that, and after that, right after that, like move over to Sandeep.
So for starters, as I keep saying startups, and I know that this term's coming up way too much, but I'm going to say it anyway. So Confiance specializes actually in brand building for businesses that have never been in the news at all for whatsoever reason, good or bad. Okay, we've usually had startups that may have done, or they may have even been in operations for a long time, but they've never really ventured into PR. They do not understand PR, and we bring them up to a certain scale, before whether we continue to work with them or whether we're happy to hand them over, and very humbly and happily so, to another agency which we feel that, okay, now this is your pie, it's semi-cooked or whatever, it's ready, go take on. But we bring businesses up to speed and level them up with their competitors up to a certain this thing. And you give me any brand today, and I can give you X number of days in which they are going to be in news and for the right reasons. There are no stunts here. There is just pure technique, pure strategy, and pure specialization at play. So definitely one thing is that, and the second is crisis management, as Akanksha said. I completely agree with her. We have clients in aviation as well, and they see more crisis than most other others do, unfortunately. And so by default, we've developed that also as a niche, even in beauty brands. Like we have a lot of lifestyle and beauty and personal wellness, where every day the rules are changing. Every day there is Twitter conversation. There is too much noise. So crisis has become a default area of specialization, because you don't know what you're going to put up today and people will troll you and there's going to be so much backlash. So that's also naturally become one of our strongest suits.
Bushra, thank you. What I'm enjoying is that I think all our panelists very forthright, coming out with just the answers that is pushing all of us in this conversation. Sandeep, I want to bring you in. As long as I've been in communications, iSource is something we've all subscribed to, right? So we've grown up on iSource. So kudos.
OneSource, actually.
Sorry, OneSource. Yeah.
What's in a name? A rose by any other name would smell just as sweet.
Good to have a poet. Listen, how are we? All of these models need people. So what is that attractiveness of small firms? And I also want to just say that let's also move this conversation to, are we seeing a trend? And I'll get to the trend there. Let me quickly explain. Maybe it's in my mind, where people are saying, I don't want to do the big thing. I want to work 4 days a week. I get paid really well because this is high value work. And I work with a small firm. I don't care about the big brands. And maybe that is the way the world order is moving into. You can be located anywhere. And that's also perhaps, are we seeing the rise of the gig economy, so as to speak? Yes. In newer firms, but I'm just throwing a lot of things there. Feel free to ignore.
Okay, so I'm going to wait for the clock to get done. No, so I'll come to that question. Carlson. Before that, allow me to literally throw, because it will land on all 4 of its feet, the cat among the pigeons. As far as referring leads to other firms is concerned, pertinent, apropos to your previous question, the forum passes out 1 lead a month at least, right? From SBI to LIC mutual fund to, for example, right now, what I call the cat among the pigeons, I know for a fact that Analect is looking for a PR and digital agency. There, I just did that on public forum, right? And that's not just one way. Month before last, the founder of a firm that specializes in the lifestyle space referred an Amazon investee, and I'm not going to use the S word, but referred an Amazon investee who signed on a 3-year contract with us. So yes, there is, and this is something, again, by dint of the forum or by dint of attitude, we've always believed it's cooperation over competition. That's how we will all progress. Right, but I'll beg to differ with some of our panelists here, respectfully. We've got 3 co-founders. The co-founder for branding and films comes from Pixar. The co-founder for content marketing was with India's largest public relations agency, and she wrote content for the entire branch. Right, while doing PR, while being hired as a PR person, she wrote content for the entire branch. I come with 14 odd years of experience across journalism, sustainability reporting, being on the brand side with Walcott, right? So it is possible to pull together 3 to 4 different specialists, right? But the one thing that I do believe in is focusing on objectives, not tools. So allow me to take a different brand here. If we talk about a PepsiCo, they're concerned with increasing their bottom lines, increasing their customers, right? They're focused on business objectives. For a very long time, firms have focused on telling the client, you have your business objectives. From that, we'll draw the marketing objectives. From that, we'll draw the comms objectives. We'll get to point C and get our retainer. Whether you get the job done is secondary, right? So I would beg to differ on the fact that IMCs tend to focus on business objective, not on marketing objectives, but more on that later. The question that you asked was gig economy firms. Yes. Among a few things that we have seen on the forum, are veteran public relations people who have, for a variety of reasons in the last 2 years, been asked to move on or have moved on from their positions. And they've turned around and said, you know what? I am going to pick the 5 or 10 brightest people I find who have been asked to move on, and let's call a spade a spade. That's happened in the last some time, right? And they've said, you know what? Until we get placed back, why don't we work together on certain projects? So hypothetically, an airline client says, okay, I've got a crisis. I'm taking airline because Bushra mentioned airlines. So suddenly there's this one lead person, let's call them general partners and limited liability partners, the way venture capital firms work. The GP will call in the person specializing in aeronautics and say, why don't you handle this crisis? I've got the lead. I'll keep a 30, you keep a 70. So yes, there has been a rise of those firms, but that's more COVID specific. By grace of God, if COVID isn't around, say, next year, I don't see this lasting as a model. What I do see lasting, however, is whether we call it young, boutique, call it what you may. On another point that I will beg to differ, I prefer being considered as somebody who's not making money. I'm fine with that, right? But just apart, what we do see lasting is firms that cause business impact, right? A Dale Vaz moved from an Amazon to a Swiggy, specifically because he got the opportunity. That's the CTO I'm talking about. He moved from an Amazon to a Swiggy because he said, here I'm going to create something anew. I'm not going to follow the rules. I'm going to make them. 80% of talent, thankfully, below the age of 35, is looking to make a difference. They want to work on clients where they don't get laid off during a pandemic or an economic downturn. I've seen 2 of those. Invariably, clients that made a business impact, became a revenue center. These were the clients that got the best talent. And that's where I see the talent game going.
Okay, Sandeep, you said some interesting things. I just want to pick up on talent under 35. So are we seeing a trend where people, professionals, between the age of, say, 21, when they pass out of graduation or postgraduates, until about their early 30s, are willing to work for high growth companies or areas where they can give their best and learn a lot than chasing big brands early on. They're working with great people. So I just want to quickly bring in Hemant. Hemant, is that something that you're seeing, which Sandeep's just spoken about? And why are we seeing this? I mean, I think we've all grown up saying, parents would say, go work with a big company, go for stability. What's that change that's happened in India today?
So I will just borrow from Maslow's theory of motivation. If you see, there are 5 layers of 5 segments of this Maslow's theory of motivation. One is the physiological safety, then there is love and belonging, and then there is esteem, and finally self-actualization. So people, the background of people is, they come from a particular family background, they come from some background. So if they are placed at very low end of that pyramid, so they will always want to go for a larger firm. Security is more important. So that kind of things. So there's a perception that a larger firm will offer them better security, that kind of stuff. But when you come to people who are in the other 2 segments of the pyramid, love and belonging, people who want esteem, self-esteem, more freedom, they want to have a better job, job satisfaction. That kind of people, they will always like to come for high growth companies. I mean, so they require something else. It's not that they require security. It's all, they are coming from that background. So they want to build on that background and go for high growth, or go for that startup mindset, which is more dynamic. So that kind of people will come to a younger firm, which is high growth and which is more dynamic.
Hemant, love the fact that you brought in psychology in the way of thinking and the Maslow's theory. Akansha, is this something that you fully agree with? I mean, is that just one way of thinking, or is there a shift that's happening today? And here's another question before you answer. There is a democratization of talent happening. By that I mean, in small towners, let's say Jhansi, people from there can come into a Delhi and do their education, or they can, go to colleges, and they all, whether it's Kota or across the country, South India, the East, they all can come today to big cities because of technology and access and work. Now, with that democratization that has happened, or the liberalization that has happened over the years, does the framework that Hemant just spoke about work, or are we seeing a different shift altogether?
Yes and no. So I do agree with Hemant when he says that there's definitely people you hire for different job profiles within the company who fits in one of those 5 motivation buckets, right? So to give you an example, when TOC hires, we make them go through an extensive personality profile NLP analysis before we get them to even meet or do a project or do anything of that sort, because we've realized we work in a certain way. As a company, we are very, very focused on culture. So, if I mean, we're a communications company more than a PR company in that sense. And because we built a certain kind of culture, you have people from all backgrounds, all personalities that can fit in, as long as they follow one core set that the company believes in. So that company's personality needs to be stayed true to. So you could be someone who's short-tempered, very silent or whatever. Whatever those typical things are, as long as you fit in to the company's scheme of things and you have freedom to express in that sense. I find it most advantageous to hire people with non-PR background who are non-assuming. So far, we've always, the guys who are in powers of position in my own company are people who are non-PR people, essentially. And the reason that helps is because we're constantly on a fresher perspective when it comes to what we're doing and how we're doing. And we learn differently, Carson. We learn down up. We don't learn top down. So what happens is, we split our company into sort of, think of it as a triangle in 3 layers. We have execution, we have strategy, and you have janitors, which is us. Our job is to bend over backwards. So we're always constantly the ones that are more flexible, more agile, more available than even the executor rung or the strategist rung. The strategist rungs are guys who have comms experience, whereas the lower end of the spectrum are guys who are freshers and with PR experience. So it sort of helps us offer different kind of solutions to different kind of clientele. So yes and no to what Hemant says. I do believe, however, that a certain rung requires a certain kind of orientation. So if my managers don't have love and belonging and they're lower in the spectrum, I know I'll lose them really fast. I know that if I don't have aspiration, higher value, or self-actualization with someone who's probably at the lowest rung, actually, then that person's not going to stick with me 10 years down the line, right? So we fight our battles differently.
I want to bring in Busha to the same question about talent. I think, if what's your view on points that have been made by Kanksha, Sandeep, and Hemant so far?
So I do agree largely with everything that Akanksha said, because I've had similar experiences. What I've also understood over time is that, sure, while bigger agencies will give you the brand value, of course, we've all been there at some point in our lives. Sandeep and I, at one point, working for the same firm. And that's how we've even known each other much before OneSource came into being. Sure, that's there. But the fact of the matter is that, somewhere down the line, the balance goes for a toss, Carson. And I think that's where the problem arises. And I'll tell you how. So with bigger agencies, normally what happens is that the hierarchical structure and the whole pyramid is such that, there is very little guidance, mentorship, and actual learning happening along the way. So while you do, it's like you're not even the third wheel. You're probably the 500th wheel of the larger ecosystem, which leaves you with a lot of execution and, along the way, and I mean it completely respectfully, but you end up being a headless chicken where there is no direction, just execution and more of execution. Whereas I think smaller firms, the edge that we offer is that, we'll give you the right amount of supervision and guidance and learning and mentorship, and we'll also, let you run with it. So, the point is that, today's youngsters are constantly, they're more stimulated, they're more inspired, they want to challenge, they want to be questioned, and they also question back. So it doesn't matter if you're the supervisor or the AD or a senior manager or whatever, a youngster will also very well come up and say, hey, but I don't see why you're doing this. And I think that is why today the choices are very clear that if you want to really grow, you really want to learn. And by growth, I just mean learning, because financial growth or compensation is just a byproduct of your actual, what you bring to the table and your value. That's how you evaluate, okay, where do you sit in the scheme of things. So I feel that is the reason where a lot of youngsters today would rather work with a younger agency where they're given that kind of hand holding, but also not breathing down their necks and being like, okay, do this. And also I think, and again I say this completely respectfully, but where a better part of their life is not going to just be spent making dossiers in innumerable amounts of reports where that's all they literally do. And believe me, we've had people, and I can see Sandeep laughing really loud and hard, because we've had people make that switch. Okay, kya karte ho, kahan se aaye ho? I'm not going to name anything. We've had people actually make that switch where they went to a bigger agency because mummy papa bahut khush the, and then they came back and they're like, it's like, how long have you worked? We worked for 2 years. Where have you worked? I've worked here and here. Very good. What do you know? I can make weeklies, and I can make dossiers, and I can do meeting minutes. And I'm like, okay, well done, bravo. Now come aboard. We'll actually, we'll get you to do some real work. So I'm just saying that I think that is a major reason why a lot of youngsters today would rather work with a younger agency and actually and also because of recognition, because again, the credits are given where they are actually due, and not because there's a hierarchy to follow and managers to please. And I think you get the drift basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're on message in so many ways. I think all of us have been through created that ladder for ourselves in our career. We work in small places, big places, and then we finally, as they say, water finds its level. So each individual finds their level and where they want to work. I think one of the questions for most professionals is, are you a big company guy or a small company guy? Right. And, when you're in a big company, say, I go work with a small company. When a small company, you aspire to work with a big company. But I think what I'd like to move to for the next thing is next question, really. And looking in interest of time, and I hope, each of you all this discussion is making all of us think and add value. What are those one or two things? And we sort of may perhaps make it rapid fire and get through a few more questions, but we'll kick off with you, Akanksha, and Sandeep, Hemant, and Bushra. What are those one or two things that your organization offers people to train and retain them as a young company?
I think we offer them the ability to strategize from day one. I think that's important. I think, and sure, there are formats that we present to the client in, but I think internally, like Bushra mentioned, the hierarchical structure is fairly straightforward. And we have a very big operation. So again, like I said, like small company, young company, whatever you may call it, we're not a 10, 20 people outfit, right? We're a fairly large number. So I think despite that number, if you're able to allow them to strategize and at the same point of time, give them constructive feedback in a way that sort of builds their careers better, I think has been one of our biggest things.
Okay, so a couple of things for us would be, number one would be people centricity, quite like thought leadership and strategy, oft used, very little understood, right? But we had the privilege of signing off about 4 to 6 clients last year. And we've all dealt with clients, right? We know how abusive at times they can get. In the middle of COVID, I think between May and August, we signed off 4 clients because they were abusive, right? So that's where I've actually walked into pitches and, large format clients have said, why would I sign you on? Because I value my people more than I value you. I've actually said that. They've laughed and they've signed us on. So number one for us would be people centricity. Number two would be the fact that 30% of our cost load, this actually dwarfs the moment you consider infrastructure costs. And right now everybody is on work from home. But 30% of our current cost load is towards training. And live training instead of, like you mentioned, podium talk training, live training. So that's something that we focused on.
So for us, from the people point of view, we have a very clear cut policy for training and promotions. So it is a mix of capability for the next level, and it is very mapped very clearly for everyone. So we encourage people for fast track growth. We encourage them to acquire the capability for the next level. I mean, we don't hire a postgraduate and harass him for 5 years before before making him assistant account manager. I mean, by the time the person is completely cheesed off. So we encourage them. So that internal process of promotions as well as training is very clearly mapped out. That is our unique edge for the talent.
Yeah, okay. So the two things that actually work really well for us, one I'll draw from what Sandeep just said, that we actually push back. So we don't believe in the principle and policy that the client is always right. It is very often that the client is not right, unfortunately, and we actually push back. So respectfully, politely, but firmly, and every team member has been given the right, to actually uh, politely put it across that, okay, this is not acceptable. If you're speaking to me in a certain way, it's not acceptable. If you're making personal remarks, it's not acceptable. If you're expecting the agency to do everything, because some of us in the fraternity have built that culture that anything, and it's okay to ask anything and everything of the agency because you're the agency. And sometimes people will ask only because they can, not because they must or they should, but because they can. So pushing back, definitely one. And secondly, I think it's a very, very simple principle, Carson. But the thing is that we're all people at the end of the day, and we're all alike. I think gratification and acknowledgement is something that goes a long way. So another culture is that whenever you get feedback, in your head somewhere you know that it's not constructive or not positive. But we actually believe in giving positive feedback. So when normally a client sends you an email, you know that it's a good chance that something has gone wrong. But internally, we actually send out a lot of emails that are acknowledging people's efforts and applauding their efforts and their achievements or accomplishments for whatever it might be. And believe it or not, this really works, because at the end of the day, everybody wants to be known for something right they did. So it's a really simple principle, but it's magical. So I think these are the two things that work really well for us.
Thanks. There's some excellent points that have come out of all of this, and I think one is obviously Sandeep talked about training, and I'm glad that's come out, because that is something which is, I think, not traditionally, but for years now, PR agencies and communication departments have always erred in not training enough, and you typically just sign on something because you need to do it at a year-end thing, and it's good. I'm glad, Bushra, you spoke about culture. While it's an overused word, it's just how do you create that atmosphere in your organization where people feel loved and you can learn and grow, and it's just not a learn and grow term that HR specialists use. And I think Himant's also gone into a very important point on really hierarchy. I think at the end of the day, everyone wants to grow. Whether you've got 7 layers in your company, what is my path to hit there? I want to hit it by, some say I want to become a general manager by 35 or a vice president by 42. Everyone have their internal. And I'm glad that even small firms are thinking, because it's just not that, oh, it's a small firm, so you can do a lot of things and we'll teach you strategy. But there is also some good old ways that they use. I think we've got time for one last question, perhaps, and I'm just looking at the watch, and so that we don't sort of move on and just keep this the conversation tight and interesting. What is the kind of path? And it's a very open question, because I also am sort of thinking it through. Well, I think what is a good way to close this conversation? And I'll just come back again to something which I have seen in a country that I've worked in before, in the UK, where I've seen some of my former colleagues there who started on their own firms. I think perhaps Sandeep or Hemant alluded, where you sort of you move out of corporate, or even people working in bigger firms start smaller firms, but they're very niche. So here's the question: how are small firms thinking about marketing themselves over the next couple of years? And how are you going to get that talent? So what are those ways in attracting those talents? I'm not talking about incentives and salary, but where do you find them? And how does that happen? So perhaps it's an easy one, but just thought it's a question that I'm sort of would like to know more about. And I think with that, we can sort of put a lid on this conversation. Gotcha.
It's a very interesting question, Carson. There's no one way, but I think conversations is very important. So I think we've hired a lot of talent through digital conversation and through honestly just reaching out to them ourselves, and LinkedIn, Bumble, we've used those two platforms extensively. So it's equally about just getting to know somebody and then hiring them, which means that at least as a company, our hiring process is over hiring than under hiring. So we're hiring before we have a need, then hiring when we have a need. So that's important. I mean, I read this book actually by Carl Jung, very, very, very young when I was a child. And he said that, right? If you have to fight the war, you've already lost it. So I think that stuck with me a fair amount, and I think that's what we do when it comes to getting people in. Conversations are more important than skill set, because skill set can be developed. It's and where they lie in the entire loyalty / honesty / ethical spectrum, I think is extremely important, because there's that much you can do in a professional setup. I think the other part of your question was clients, right? Is that what you mentioned? Where do we source them from?
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't get
Sure.
I didn't get what you said. You said what was the
I
last
just
part?
wanted to understand, there was another part of your question, I think. Where do
How
we
we
sort of
market
connect with
yourself.
clients?
How do you market?
yourself. Okay. Yeah, sure. I think collaboration has been key for us. So picking up the phone on somebody and saying, "Hey, this is what I do, and I'd love to collaborate with you," has been beautiful for us. Reference is always key. So really align myself with Bushra here, where I say that word of mouth is. I mean, we haven't I've cold called one client in the last 8 years. It's just one. I haven't cold called a single other client in the last 8 years of our existence. But I also feel that connecting with founders directly and getting to know their perspective without selling helps us sell. So I'm genuinely more interested in someone's story and getting to know them better, and then seeing if our services fit, than being hungry for that. So staying hungry, staying foolish, yes, but having deeper and authentic connections have helped us crack a lot more business than just needing to sell.
Okay, so I'm going to break this down into two parts, and I remember, Carson, you mentioned that we speak with examples. My current country lead for the corporate communication vertical is the erstwhile Marcom head of Everstone Capital. One of our senior managers is the erstwhile Copcom head of Save the Children. There are two people on the team, one of whom actually said during her last round, "Look, in 3 years, I'm going to leave you and I'm going to go to Volvo," right? The auto giant. And I said, this lady has to be mad. She's saying this during the interview, right? And we hired her. And 1.5 years down the line, she's already said, because, the person who was at Volvo, who she considered a mentor, has now moved on. Sudeep, we all know Sudeep, right? And she said, you know what? I'm not going anywhere because you made a business person out of me, right? So we look at people through three lenses: presence of integrity, absence of ego, willingness to learn. If you've got these three, the skill sets we can teach you. That's something that has led us to grow 100% in terms of, we're 4.5 years old, 43 people across Bombay, Delhi, and Bangalore. Hyderabad opened in October 2020 when everybody thought I was going barking mad, saying, "Baki sab lay off kar," pardon my language. Everybody is laying off and you're actually starting a new office. But there are certain core things that we've stuck by as far as people centricity is concerned. I'm sorry I harp on that one aspect. As far as clients is concerned, again, we, exactly like Akanksha said, we've worked on referrals, right? We actually gave 600% lead generation for one of the unicorns with earned media. Nobody's heard of that, right? They went ahead and referred, and that's usually a shared media situation, right? You pay for it, and then there's CPC, CPM, all of that comes into the picture. In our case, when we gave them 600% hikes, they gave us about a 40% hike this year in the middle of COVID. So when we become a revenue center, the client is thinking, boss, they're doing well for us. If I'm spending $100, I'm earning 400. I don't need to let them go. I need to get them more motivated. Now that's worked very well for us because 80% of our clients today are referral clients. And so, this is something that I've always said, because the forum is about 16,000 odd people. And I've always said this to a bunch of people. You focus on your people, you focus on your partners. That's the only two things you need, right? So those are the two principles that have helped us hold things together and grow.
Yeah, so there are two things, two parts of the questions. One is marketing, second is people. So marketing wise, more or less doing good work for the existing clients and getting references. That has been our practice, and 80-85% of our current client base is come either through the direct connections or through the client referring to someone and then they coming to us. So we also have won some accounts through RFPs, the government accounts. We have won through state RFP, participating in that, making it a very good case and a very good presentation, giving them a better ROI. So that kind of, so it also works getting us the clients. Unknown clients, cold calling, it has been a very, very small part of the entire piece. So active marketing, we are not planning. I mean, we plan to do a good work for our client and accordingly get more references. That will be the part of strategy. Coming from the people point of view, getting postgraduates works well with us. I mean, rather than marketing or mass comms. I mean, having a person hiring a graduate and then encouraging that person to acquire post-graduation in the next 3 years while the person is actually learning on the job is a better strategy, because they get hands-on experience. And what training will they do outside? I mean, if they work in the organization, work on good clients, that is our proposition. They will be trained better than in any college in the country. I mean, if you see all the teachers, I mean, the best of the PR professionals, they don't go out to teach. It's all so. I mean, training them in-house and encouraging them to acquire post-graduation in the, say, for example, economics or in a business related area works well for us.
So as far as marketing, the agency itself is concerned, as repetitive as it may sound, but as I had discussed at the beginning of our discussion, is that even today, as we speak, 80% of our clients are through word of mouth and referrals, either of existing or former clients, which is saying something. Also, I think we're a very come find us sort of an agency. We're not really very hungry for more business and more business. And it's true, because, a lot of times people are like, hey, but you guys don't market yourselves enough. And we got to know because of X and Y who worked with you guys last year, whatever, during the pandemic, and the results were great. So it's true that we are a very, very come find us sort of an agency. We don't really go very aggressively on the marketing. Cold calling is zero. BD team still does not exist. Everything is incoming and inbound. It's rarely happened that I've ever actually reached out to somebody for business. Having said that, what I think has worked wonders for us, Carson, is the fact that, personal brand building, I feel, really works. More so when you're the solo founder, because I don't have co-founders and partners, so to speak. So Confiance is me and I'm Confiance. We're literally extensions of each other. And so people who know brand Bushra Ismail, if at all it exists, I think that really works. Anybody who's worked with me and now with Confiance would vouch for us. So yeah, word of mouth, referrals, and personal brand building. And interestingly enough, I would say it's exactly the same with talent acquisition as well, because a lot of our existing team members have brought in more team members. A lot of people who follow me on LinkedIn and even on Instagram, strangely enough, and have seen certain previous interviews and panel discussions, have applied for jobs. You'd be surprised to know a lot of my existing team members were former friends and acquaintances who had no idea about PR. They just saw me, followed me, randomly reached out to me on Instagram DM saying, hey, I'd love to understand more about PR. One such team member is today one of the fastest growing team members at Confiance. He has doubled his payout in a year of being with us, and today is leading a team of 3 others. And this is a guy with 11 months of PR, to be precise, 11 months of experience in PR. So I think personal brand building and word of mouth is the key here for both, in both respects, acquisition of business and people both.
Thank you. Akansha, Hemant, Sandeep, and Gusha, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. I think there is so much of such good examples and conviction that has come out and that you all have shared during this conversation. And I would highly encourage people should actually tune in and listen to this conversation, because there are little nuggets of wisdom and live experience from 4 fantastic practitioners who have really sort of spoken like there is no box. And on that note, thank you once again.